When you cast your ballot on November 8th, newly drawn district lines will be in use for the first time. Now, we covered that redistricting process extensively, from the independent commission that collected data and input to create recommended boundaries, to the legislature's final decision on each redrawn map. Now, a new report is raising questions about the intentions behind those final district lines. This week, New Mexico in Focus correspondent Gwyneth Dolan sat down with one of the co-authors of that report to find out how we could make this process more honest and effective.
Professor Gabriel Sanchez, thank you so much for being here.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You were part of a team that evaluated New Mexico's redistricting process. It's a big, long 59-page report. Yes. What's the major takeaway for you?
Yeah, long, comprehensive report. You know, if I had to say what's the one take-home message, is we had a much better process and outcomes with the CRC in place this cycle. But I think both the public and the experts I talked to are ready to go to the next step and have a truly independent commission with actually binding map decisions that doesn't have to rely on the legislature to actually implement them. I think that's the big take-home message. That's what everybody wanted to know, and fortunately we were able to find a pretty consensus, take on that. And I think that hopefully is helpful as we think about the next cycle some years from now.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of some of the problems that we have seen in the past, I've done a lot of reporting on redistricting. You've looked at this a lot. The number one thing that people said to me, people who had been a part of it, lawmakers, demographers, said that the legislature pursues an incumbent protection plan. They draw districts that they are going to win next time. New Mexico state lawmakers tend to protect themselves. And you found, but that was anecdotal. You found some evidence for it.
Yeah, obviously that was one of the big research questions that we started the report with. The line you often hear is, we should make sure that we have constituents that pick their legislators, not the other way around, legislators getting to pick who their constituents are through the redistricting process. And, a couple of different ways to look at that. One, in the survey, we asked folks about their perception of how that was done. Unfortunately, the legislature, and particularly the Senate, wasn't rated very well by the public, and we surveyed highly likely New Mexico voters. So these are the folks paying close attention to what was going on the ground. And probably more importantly, we actually had map analysis. Dr. David Cottrell, who actually did all the map analysis for the CRC itself, lent his expertise to our cause and did that for our evaluation report. And although there's some positives we can talk about in his map analysis, when it came to looking at incumbency advantage, he found that there was unfortunately evidence that there were more protection of incumbents through the legislature's maps, and much more so than the CRC, and a bunch of computer-generated algorithm-based maps that are supposed to take politics out of the equation. So at the end of the day, you'd have to conclude that there was protection of incumbents this redistricting cycle, and that I think confirms what we often hear on the ground anecdotally from folks, which is important for us as researchers. Whenever you test a question, you don't know what the answer is going to be, but when it's in line with what the experts are telling you they're seeing on the ground, you really got something there.
And here's something I found surprising. One thing that a lot of people had predicted was you've got Democrats in control of the legislature and the governor's office. A lot of people said they are just going to run the show here. They're going to make this a complete political gerrymander and advantage themselves the whole way. In terms of the congressional districts, which you guys didn't look at, people are saying that looks like a Democratic gerrymander. But did you find that for the legislature?
No, really important question and important finding. We actually didn't find strong evidence that there was any partisan gerrymandering, at least in the state maps. Our focus was at the state level. And I think you've got to give Democrats a lot of credit, because as you alluded to, right, they had the opportunity to really push through some maps that would highly advantage their party, and that didn't happen. And in fact, even Republicans we spoke with that were on the CRC or just that follow the process closely, they all basically had to give credit to Democrats and said, they really could have made this much worse for us. And they really did put forth, at least in terms of thinking about partisan gerrymandering, a pretty fair set of maps. So you got to give them credit for that.
But I mean, if you're protecting who's in office now and they have strong majorities in both houses, all you have to do is protect the incumbents, and you've got you continue Democrat dominance despite the changes.
Well, as you know well, when it comes to partisan politics, there's no limits on how big of an advantage you can have.
That's right.
So I was predicting actually, and there's a lot of folks I know in the legislature, as we started conversations about the CRC, a lot of them would tell me, Gabe, I'm with you principally on this, but we're going to have an opportunity to really take it to Republicans. And so I perceived going into this, we were going to see a lot more extremity in that. And reality is there really wasn't a big problem there in terms of partisan gerrymandering, which I think is a win for everybody in the context of this cycle.
That's so interesting. You know, this is the first time that an advisory commission was part of the process. That's new. Overall, how did the commission do?
Well, I think at least on a couple of really important pieces of the puzzle, they did an outstanding job. And I'd like to start by just noting everybody we talked to and the evidence that we collected suggested this was probably the most successful redistricting cycle, at least in recent memory, in the state of New Mexico, and everybody attributed that to the presence of the CRC. And one area where I think it really stood out was in terms of community engagement. A lot of this, you've got to give huge amount of respect to Justice Chavez, who led the CRC. He made some really important decisions that opened up access points to a wider segment of the community, especially tribal members of the community that don't often have the opportunity to engage in this process. And consequently, we saw it a number of different ways in our analysis, much more engagement from the public than you typically see during redistricting processes. And I think that was definitely a result of the CRC's presence that really worked hard to ensure that they met the community at least halfway and made it easier for them to engage.
Yeah, people said to me so many times that the community engagement before was a dog and pony show, and it wasn't like that this time at all. But you do have some recommendations for improvements. So even if, you know, no matter what shape the commission takes next time, what needs to improve or what should be different?
Yeah, even though a lot of wins, I say technology was a big win that should be continued, gave people an opportunity if they couldn't get there in person, participate virtually. Biggest thing probably I heard the most about was being able to actually play around with map analysis and software as an average member of the public. I think that was incredibly valuable, but of course there's always recommendations of things that didn't go well. If we're talking specifically about the CRC, you've got to start with who is actually on the committee and how that naming process and vetting process worked. Huge conversation early on, right? Big missteps, unfortunately, for the CRC. You had very low levels of gender representation. It was almost exclusively male. You had no Native Americans, almost exclusively from Albuquerque and other metro areas. So we need to do a better job of diversifying the committee moving forward, whatever it is. If it's the CRC 2.0 or if it's a truly independent commission, let's do a better job of making sure it's more representative of average New Mexicans, not just those that are political elites or connected to the system. Let's do a better job with that, I think, is the number one thing that I heard. And you also had a whole lot of really strong concerns about the role of the legislature in this segment of the process. Even though I will say, again, a lot of credit to be paid to the legislature in doing a good job on partisan gerrymandering and other things, you actually heard a number of legislators directly state, hey, CRC, you did a really good job, but you know what? It's our time in the process and we've got this. And in essence, I think it led to a lot of folks in the community perceiving the CRC didn't really have the power and authority to do as much as we would like to have seen, because at the end of the day, in many cases, it looked like the legislature just threw things out and did their own things, unfortunately, sometimes behind closed doors without transparency. And that we heard loud and clear from voters in the survey is not what they want to see moving forward. In fact, of all the different things we put in front of them, what they prioritized is transparency. Everything should be out in the light of day is what the public wants to see.
Professor Sanchez, thank you so much for talking to us.
Absolute pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about something other than election analysis this time of year. Thank you.